The year was 2147, and humanity had finally made it to the stars. After centuries of dreaming, decades of research, and years of building, Earth's first deep space exploration fleet, dubbed Odyssey 1, was venturing beyond the edges of known space. The fleet consisted of 3 ships: the flagship Pioneer, a sleek vessel designed for diplomacy; the Vanguard, equipped with cutting-edge sensors; and the Horizon, a cargo ship carrying supplies for long journeys. Their mission? To seek out new worlds, establish contact with alien life, and bring back knowledge that could change the future of humanity. It was during one of these routine scans that something extraordinary happened. The crew aboard the Pioneer noticed an anomaly, a cluster of massive objects blocking their path. As they approached, the shapes resolved into a breathtaking sight: a sprawling armada of alien ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built. At the center loomed a colossal warship, its surface gleaming like polished obsidian under the light of a distant star. This was no ordinary fleet. It was the Galactic Empire, an interstellar superspace spanning thousands of worlds. Admiral Varnock, commander of the Imperial forces aboard the Ecliptica Imperialis, wasted no time. His voice boomed through the communication channel in heavily accented English, laced with what sounded like rehearsed menace. "Primitive beings of Earth," he began, his tone dripping with condescension, "you have trespassed upon the sacred dominion of the Galactic Empire. Surrender your vessels immediately or face annihilation." The human crew froze for a moment, staring at each other in stunned silence. Then someone snorted. It started as a quiet chuckle from Lieutenant Carter, the youngest member of the bridge team. But within seconds, the entire room erupted into uncontrollable laughter. Captain Elise Marquez, leader of the expedition, tried to stifle her giggles but failed miserably. Even Commander Patel, usually the most serious person on board, couldn't help letting out a guffaw. Admiral Varnock blinked in confusion. He leaned closer to his holographic display, studying the humans' reactions. Were they mocking him? Was this some sort of psychological tactic? He straightened his posture, attempting to regain authority. "Cease this insolence at once," he barked. "Your feeble attempts at defiance will not save you." But his words only made things worse. Someone whispered, "Did he just call us primitive beings?" Another added, "And did anyone else catch that overdramatic echo effect?" Soon, tears were streaming down faces as the crew doubled over in hysterics. For all their advanced technology, the Empire's presentation seemed hilariously over the top, like something out of a bad sci-fi movie. On the bridge of the Ecliptica Imperialis, Varnock turned to his advisors, visibly flustered. "What is the meaning of this behavior?" he demanded. His chief strategist, Commander Xylov, hesitated before replying. Perhaps they are attempting to confuse us." "Admiral, primitive species often resort to unpredictable strategies when cornered." Varnock frowned, unsure how to proceed. Never in his career had he encountered such a bizarre reaction. Back on the Pioneer, Captain Marquez finally managed to compose herself enough to address the situation. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and activated the comms. "Ahem. Sorry about that," she said, still fighting back a grin. "We're not laughing at you. Well, maybe a little, but we mean no disrespect. We're just surprised, I guess." Her casual tone only deepened Varnock's bewilderment. Surprised? By what? His mighty fleet should inspire awe, not amusement. Yet here he was, facing a species that found his grandeur laughable. Little did either side know, this encounter would set off a chain of events neither could have anticipated. A chain that would challenge everything they thought they knew about power, culture, and connection. For now, though, the humans kept laughing, and the Empire kept wondering why. The laughter aboard the Pioneer finally subsided, but the tension between the two sides remained thick in the air. Captain Elise Marquez knew they couldn't afford to let this misunderstanding escalate further. Humanity's survival depended on diplomacy, not jokes. She straightened her uniform, cleared her throat, and addressed Admiral Varnock once more. "Admiral," she began, choosing her words carefully, "we apologize if our reaction seemed disrespectful. Your arrival was unexpected, and, well, your tone caught us off guard." She paused, glancing at her crew to ensure no one would burst into giggles again. "We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your empire." Varnock narrowed his eyes, studying her through the holographic display. Her calm demeanor puzzled him. Was she truly sincere, or was this another ploy? He decided to test her intentions. "Very well," he replied stiffly. "If you seek peace, then prove it by surrendering your vessels and allowing my forces to inspect them." Marquez blinked. "Surrender," she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. These ships are essential for our mission, and we can assure you they pose no threat." Before Varnock could respond, Lieutenant Carter leaned over to whisper something to Marquez. "Captain, maybe we should show them a video or something. Like, proof we're harmless." Marquez considered the idea. It wasn't ideal, but it might help break the ice. She nodded and turned back to the comms. "Admiral, perhaps we can share some information about ourselves. A cultural exchange, so to speak. Would you be open to that?" Varnock hesitated. Cultural exchanges were unheard of in the Galactic Empire. Interactions with lesser species usually involved domination, not dialogue. But curiosity got the better of him. "Proceed," he said cautiously. Moments later, the human crew transmitted clips from Earth, a montage of everyday life featuring bustling cities, serene landscapes, and moments of joy. There were scenes of children playing, musicians performing, and even footage of stand-up comedians delivering punchlines to roaring audiences. The humans hoped these images would convey their peaceful nature. Instead, confusion spread across the faces of the Imperial officers watching the transmission. To them, the chaotic energy of Earth's cities looked like disorder, the music sounded strange, and the comedians' antics appeared completely nonsensical. When one comedian slipped on a banana peel, several officers exchanged bewildered glances. What kind of civilization found such behavior entertaining? Back on the Pioneer, Marquez noticed their baffled expressions and sighed inwardly. Clearly, humor wasn't translating well. Still, she pressed on. "As you can see, we value creativity and connection. Our differences don't have to divide us." But just as Varnock opened his mouth to reply, an alarm blared throughout the bridge of the Ecliptica Imperialis. One of their reconnaissance probes had malfunctioned while scanning the human ships. Instead of gathering data, it began broadcasting circus music, loud, cheerful tunes that echoed across both fleets. For the humans, it was yet another absurd moment, prompting stifled chuckles. For the Empire, however, it felt like mockery. "This is intolerable," snapped Commander Xylov, slamming his fist on the console. "They're deliberately sabotaging our equipment." "No, wait," Marquez interjected quickly. "That's not us. It must be a glitch. We'd never tamper with your technology." Varnock raised a hand to silence his subordinate. His patience was wearing thin, but he forced himself to remain composed. If the humans weren't responsible, then what was causing these bizarre incidents? And why did everything they did seem designed to undermine Imperial dignity? Determined to regain control of the situation, Varnock ordered his engineers to retrieve the rogue probe. Meanwhile, he instructed his fleet to maintain a defensive perimeter around the human ships. Any sudden moves, he warned, would be met with force. As the standoff continued, tensions simmered on both sides. The humans struggled to figure out how to communicate without offending their hosts, while the Empire grappled with the unsettling realization that they might be dealing with a species unlike any they'd encountered before. Every attempt at understanding only deepened the divide, leaving both parties wondering whether peace was even possible. For now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if laughter would lead to friendship or war. As the hours passed, The gap between humanity and the Galactic Empire became increasingly clear. The humans tried their best to explain themselves, but every effort seemed to widen the misunderstanding rather than bridge it. Captain Elise Marquez stood on the bridge of the Pioneer, her brow furrowed as she reviewed the latest exchange with Admiral Varnock. His rigid demeanor and formal language clashed sharply with the casual, often humorous tone of her crew. It was like trying to mix oil and water. No matter how hard they shook, the two sides refused to blend. To make matters worse, the rogue probe incident still lingered in everyone's minds. Though the engineers aboard the Ecliptica Imperialis had finally retrieved the malfunctioning device, its circus music had left a lasting impression. For the Empire, it symbolized chaos and disrespect. For the humans, it was just another absurd moment in an already surreal encounter. Every time someone mentioned the probe, the human crew had to bite their tongues to avoid laughing again. Determined to find common ground, Marcus decided to shift tactics. She suggested sharing more about Earth's culture, not just random clips, but structured explanations of values like creativity, humor, and resilience. Maybe if we show them what makes us tick, she told her team, they'll understand why we reacted the way we did. With that goal in mind, the humans prepared a presentation highlighting some of humanity's greatest achievements: art, science, exploration, and yes, even comedy. They included footage of famous landmarks, groundbreaking inventions, and iconic performances by comedians who used laughter to bring people together. Marcus hoped this would demonstrate that humor wasn't meant to offend. It was a way of connecting, coping, and celebrating life. When the transmission reached the Ecliptica Imperialis, however, the reaction was far from what the humans expected. Admiral Varnock watched silently as images of Earth flickered across his screen. To him, the emphasis on frivolity seemed baffling. Why would a species focus so much energy on trivial pursuits when they could be building monuments to power or expanding their dominion? Commander Vzylov voiced his frustration openly. "This is madness," he muttered, shaking his head. "They waste resources on jokes and music instead of conquering new territories. No wonder they're primitive." Varnock didn't respond immediately. He couldn't deny that the humans' priorities were alien to him, but something about their presentation intrigued him. Their world brimmed with color, noise, and emotion, qualities absent from the sterile efficiency of the Galactic Empire. Could there be value in such chaos? Or was it merely evidence of their inferiority? Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the encounter spread rapidly. Social media exploded with memes mocking the Empire's pompous attitude. Memes of Admiral Varnock's scowling face, captioned with phrases like "evil villain energy" and "angry space dad," went viral overnight. Late-night talk shows dedicated entire segments to roasting the Empire's overly dramatic warnings. Humanity found humor in the absurdity of the situation, turning potential fear into entertainment. Unbeknownst to the humans, these memes also made their way to the Empire through intercepted communications. When Varnock saw one depicting him as a cartoonish villain holding a rubber chicken instead of a weapon, he felt a strange mix of irritation and curiosity. Was this how the humans saw him? Ridiculous. Over the top. The cultural divide grew deeper, yet subtle cracks began to form. Some members of the Imperial crew started questioning whether their rigid worldview truly represented strength, or if it blinded them to other ways of living. Even Varnock found himself pondering the possibility that humanity's laughter wasn't mockery, but something else entirely. Still, neither side knew how to move forward. The humans wanted peace, but their attempts at explanation kept coming off as jokes. The Empire sought order, but their sternness only fueled more confusion. As stars twinkled outside the ship's windows, both civilizations faced a challenge greater than any battle: understanding each other. For now, the galaxy held its breath, unsure whether this clash of cultures would lead to harmony or hilarity turned hostile. Frustrated but determined, Captain Elise Marquez decided it was time to take a bold step. If words and cultural presentations weren't bridging the gap, perhaps laughter itself could be the key. After all, humor had united humanity across languages, borders, and generations. It might just work on an interstellar scale, too. She called an emergency meeting with her senior officers aboard the Pioneer. "Listen," she began, pacing back and forth in the cramped conference room. "We've tried explaining ourselves, showing them our culture, and even apologizing. But nothing seems to click. So here's my idea. Let's teach them about comedy. Not just jokes, but why we laugh, how it connects us, and what it says about who we are." Her proposal met with mixed reactions. Lieutenant Carter grinned excitedly, already imagining slapstick routines involving zero gravity. Commander Patel, however, frowned. "Captain, this is risky. What if they see it as mockery? We're walking a fine line here." "I know," Marquez admitted. "But think about it. Humor has always been our way of dealing with fear, confusion, and even conflict. Maybe it can do the same for them." With no better options on the table, the crew agreed to give it a shot. They compiled clips from Earth's greatest comedic moments, sketches by Monty Python, stand-up routines by Robin Williams, and classic silent films featuring Charlie Chaplin. Then Marcus sent a message to Admiral Varnock. "Admiral," she said over the comms, "we'd like to share something unique to our species. It's called comedy, and it's one of the things that makes us, well, human." Varnock hesitated. He wasn't sure what to expect, but his curiosity outweighed his skepticism. "Very well," he replied. "Show me." The transmission began, and the bridge of the Ecliptica Imperialis fell silent as scenes of absurdity unfolded before them. At first, the Imperial officers sat stone-faced, utterly perplexed. Why would anyone find these antics amusing? When a man slipped on a banana peel, several officers exchanged confused glances. When a group of actors performed exaggerated pratfalls, Commander Zyloff muttered, "This is supposed to mean something." But then something unexpected happened. As the clips continued, Admiral Varnock found himself tilting his head slightly. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth when a comedian delivered a clever punchline. By the time a scene showed a bumbling character accidentally sitting on a pie, Varnock let out a small chuckle, quickly stifling it, of course, but it was there. His reaction didn't go unnoticed. The humans cheered quietly in their own quarters, thrilled that their gamble seemed to be paying off. For Varnock, though, the experience was both exhilarating and unsettling. Laughter felt foreign, almost rebellious against the Empire's strict code of conduct. Yet there was no denying its appeal. Encouraged by his subtle shift, Marcus followed up with another message. "Admiral, humor isn't just about jokes. It's about connection. About finding light in darkness. Would you like to learn more?" After a long pause, Varnock responded, "Explain further." Over the next few days, the humans introduced the Empire to different forms of comedy, from witty wordplay to physical humor. Varnock practiced delivering punchlines in private, stumbling at first, but gradually improving. To his surprise, he discovered that laughter wasn't weakness. It was a form of strength, a way to break down barriers. However, not everyone shared his newfound appreciation. Some Imperial officers viewed his interest in comedy as a betrayal of their values. Whispers of dissent spread through the ranks, culminating in a heated argument during a council meeting. "You're compromising our authority," accused General Krithos, a hardline officer known for his disdain of anything unconventional. "If we start laughing with these primitives, what's next? Will we dance for them too?" Varnock stood firm. "This is not about compromise. It's about understanding. Perhaps it's time we considered other ways of connecting with those unlike us." The tension between tradition and change simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Meanwhile, the humans remained unaware of the growing divide within the Empire, but they were about to find out just how dangerous laughter could become when taken seriously. For now, the galaxy teetered on the edge of transformation, unsure whether humor would unite or divide. Admiral Varnok's growing fascination with humor did not go unnoticed or unpunished. Within the ranks of the Galactic Empire, whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs grew into outright dissent. General Krithos, a staunch traditionalist who had always viewed humanity as little more than pests to be exterminated, saw Varnok's interest in comedy as a betrayal of everything the Empire stood for. To him, laughter was weakness, a disease that could corrupt the rigid order the Empire had spent millennia building. Late one evening aboard the Ecliptica Imperialis, Krithos gathered a group of like-minded officers in a secluded chamber deep within the ship. Their faces were grim, their voices low but filled with conviction. "The Admiral has lost his way," Krithos declared, pacing back and forth. "He wastes our time learning jokes from these primitives while they mock us openly. If we do not act now, the Empire will crumble under this nonsense." His words resonated deeply with those present. They nodded in agreement, their loyalty shifting from Varnok to Krithos. "What do you propose?" asked Commander Zilar, one of the fleet's top strategists. His tone was sharp, impatient. "We can't let this continue." Krithos leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We take control. Arrest Varnok for incompetence and declare martial law. Humanity must be eradicated before their mockery spreads across the galaxy. This is no longer just about preserving order. It's about survival." By dawn, the rebels had executed their plan. Using encrypted channels, they coordinated with loyalist ships scattered throughout the Armada. By midday, half the fleet had defected to Krithos's cause. When Varnok arrived on the bridge, he found himself surrounded by armed guards, his authority stripped away in an instant. "You have disgraced the Empire," Krithos sneered, standing tall before him. "Your obsession with human frivolity has weakened us. From this moment on, I lead." Varnok remained calm, though anger simmered beneath his composed exterior. He knew resistance would be futile. For now. Instead, he chose to bide his time. "So be it," he said evenly. "But know this, your fear of laughter will destroy you long before humanity does." Meanwhile, aboard the Pioneer, Captain Marcus sensed something was wrong. Communication with the Empire had gone silent, replaced by ominous transmissions between rebel ships. Her crew scrambled to intercept messages, piecing together fragments of information. It didn't take long for them to realize what had happened: a coup. "They've overthrown Admiral Varnok," Marquez announced to her team, her voice heavy with concern. "This faction sounds dangerous. They're talking about wiping us out entirely." Lieutenant Carter frowned. "Why? What changed?" "It's simple," Commander Patel interjected. "They think we're too unpredictable. Our humor scares them because it challenges their worldview. And now, without Varnok trying to understand us, there's nothing stopping them from attacking." Marquez clenched her fists. "Then we need to help him. If we don't stop this rebellion, both humanity and the Empire are doomed." Through covert channels, the humans reached out to Varnok, offering assistance. At first, he hesitated. Accepting help from primitives felt like admitting defeat, but pride quickly gave way to pragmatism. "Very well," he replied through a secure transmission. "Together, we may yet restore balance." Thus began an uneasy alliance. The humans devised a daring plan, using their smaller, faster ships to disrupt the rebel supply lines and communications, while Varnok rallied loyalist forces. For the first time, two vastly different species worked side by side, not out of mutual respect, but out of necessity. As preparations unfolded, tension crackled in the air. The rebels, emboldened by their newfound power, prepared to launch an assault against both the humans and the remnants of Varnok's fleet. What they didn't realize was that humanity had one last trick up its sleeve, a strategy so absurd, so chaotic, that it might just turn the tide of the conflict. In the vastness of space, alliances formed and broke apart like stars exploding into supernovas. Laughter, once dismissed as trivial, had become a weapon and a lifeline. The battle began with a deafening roar as the rebel fleet, led by General Krithos, launched its attack. Their strategy was simple yet overwhelming: deploy everything they had to crush both humanity and Varnak's loyalists in one decisive strike. Massive warships bristling with weapons surrounded the smaller human vessels, while sleek fighters darted through space like angry hornets. Yet, despite their superior numbers and firepower, the rebels underestimated one crucial factor: humanity's creativity. Captain Elise Marquez stood on the bridge of the Pioneer, her eyes fixed on the swirling chaos outside. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Let's show them what we're made of." The humans' plan was unconventional, to say the least. Instead of engaging directly, they used their agility and ingenuity to exploit weaknesses in the rebels' overly complicated designs. Lieutenant Carter piloted the Vanguard into a daring maneuver, weaving between enemy ships while deploying decoy drones equipped with holographic projectors. These drones projected absurd images onto the rebels' hulls: cartoonish faces sticking out tongues, oversized mustaches, and even dancing clowns. At first, the rebels dismissed these antics as distractions, focusing instead on targeting the human ships. But soon, confusion spread among their ranks. Pilots hesitated, unsure whether the bizarre projections were harmless pranks or some form of advanced psychological warfare. One pilot reported seeing his own ship transformed into a giant rubber chicken, causing him to lose focus and collide with an ally. Meanwhile, Admiral Varnak coordinated the loyalist forces from aboard the Ecliptica Imperialis. Though stripped of formal command, he still commanded respect among many officers who valued reason over fear. Under his guidance, the Loyalists executed precise maneuvers to protect the humans, buying them time to execute their chaotic tactics. Things escalated further when the rebels unveiled their secret weapon: a fleet of oversized missiles designed to intimidate opponents with sheer size. Each missile was painted with menacing symbols and emitted a low, ominous hum as it approached its target. The humans couldn't help but laugh. They looked like something out of a child's nightmare. "Lieutenant," Marquez called out, grinning despite herself, "can we hack those things?" Carter grinned back. "Already on it, Captain." Using cutting-edge tech developed for Earth's entertainment industry, the humans reprogrammed the missiles mid-flight. Instead of exploding violently, the projectiles began performing slapstick routines. Some spun uncontrollably, others collided comically with each other, and one even started playing circus music, a callback to the infamous Rogue Probe incident. General Krithos watched in mounting fury as his grand assault unraveled before his eyes. "Cease fire," he barked, slamming his fist on the console. "This is not how battles are fought." But his orders fell on deaf ears. Chaos reigned supreme, with laughter rippling across both fleets. Even some of Krithos' own troops struggled to maintain composure, their stern facades cracking under the weight of absurdity. Commander Ziller, once a staunch supporter of the rebellion, muttered under his breath, "Perhaps this was a mistake." Back on the Pioneer, Marquez turned to her crew, pride shining in her eyes. "Looks like humor's winning the day." By the time the dust settled, the rebels were in disarray. Many surrendered, unable to stomach the humiliation of being defeated by what they saw as childish tricks. Others retreated, vowing revenge, but lacking the cohesion to pose an immediate threat. As the last of the rogue missiles fizzled out in a final burst of confetti-like sparks, the battlefield fell silent. Admiral Varnak hailed the human fleet, his voice tinged with amusement. "It seems laughter has proven mightier than lasers today." Marquez chuckled. "Told you it would work." For now, the immediate danger had passed, but the galaxy was forever changed. Laughter, once dismissed as trivial, had become a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere deep in space, humanity and the remnants of the Empire prepared to face whatever came next, together. With the rebel faction defeated and General Krithos' forces in retreat, a fragile calm settled over the battlefield. Admiral Varnak, restored to his position by the loyalists who had witnessed the absurd yet effective tactics of humanity, decided it was time for a new approach. He realized that laughter wasn't just a weapon, it could also be a bridge. And so, he proposed something unprecedented: a summit aboard the Ecliptica Imperialis to discuss peace terms. The idea spread quickly through both fleets. For the humans, it was an opportunity to solidify their alliance with the Empire and ensure their survival. For the Imperial officers, it was a chance to understand this strange species that had turned warfare into performance art. But no one anticipated what Varnock had planned next. "I will open the proceedings," he announced during a private meeting with his advisors, "with stand-up comedy." The room erupted in stunned silence. Commander Gyloth blinked several times before finding his voice. "Stand-up comedy? Are you certain, Admiral?" Varnock nodded firmly. "It is only fitting. They have taught us much about humor, and I believe it can serve as a gesture of goodwill. Besides," he added with a faint smile, "if they can laugh at themselves, perhaps we should learn to do the same." Word of Varnock's decision reached the human fleet, sparking disbelief and excitement. Captain Elise Marquez couldn't help but chuckle when she heard the news. "Well, this ought to be interesting," she said to her crew. "Who knew we'd inspire the Galactic Empire to take up comedy?" On the day of the summit, representatives from both sides gathered in the grand hall of the Ecliptica Imperialis. The humans entered cautiously, unsure what to expect. The Imperial officers sat stiffly in their seats, their expressions unreadable. At the center of the stage stood Admiral Varnock, wearing ceremonial robes slightly altered for the occasion. They now featured small embroidered smiley faces, a nod to Earth's culture. "Greetings," Varnock began, clearing his throat. "Before we begin negotiations, I wish to share a joke." His voice wavered slightly, betraying nerves, but he pressed on. "Why did the human cross the galaxy?" He paused dramatically, to prove they were not chicken. Silence hung heavy in the air for a moment. Then, someone in the back of the room, a young lieutenant from the Pioneer, let out a snort. Soon, polite chuckles rippled through the audience. Even some of the stoniest-faced Imperial officers cracked hesitant smiles. Encouraged by the reaction, Varnock continued, delivering a short routine filled with awkward pauses, exaggerated gestures, and punchlines borrowed from Earth's comedians. By the end, the entire hall erupted into applause, not because his delivery was perfect, but because of the sheer audacity of the gesture. Captain Marquez stepped forward after Varnock finished. "Admiral," she said warmly, "that was unexpected and impressive. Truly." Varnock bowed slightly, his cheeks tinged with pride. "Thank you, Captain. It seems there is much we can learn from each other." Inspired by Varnock's bravery, others began volunteering to perform. A human engineer told a story about accidentally programming a robot to sing lullabies instead of guarding doors. An Imperial officer recounted a tale of miscommunication involving a malfunctioning translator that called him Galactic Pancake Chef. Each act brought more laughter, breaking down barriers faster than any formal speech ever could. By the end of the summit, alliances were forged not through treaties alone, but through shared joy. Back on Earth, social media lit up once again, not with memes mocking the Empire, but with videos celebrating their newfound camaraderie. Across the galaxy, word spread of the laughing Admiral and the humans who dared to bring humor to the stars. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire felt lighter, freer. Laughter had become its secret strength, proving that even the most rigid systems could bend without breaking. As ships parted ways, both humans and Imperials looked toward the future, not as enemies or strangers, but as partners united by something universal: the power of a good laugh. The success of the Stand-Up Summit sparked an idea so bold, so unexpected, that it seemed destined to become legend. Admiral Varnock, inspired by his clumsy yet heartful performance, suggested taking humor beyond the confines of the Ecliptica Imperialis. If laughter can unite us here, he proposed during a follow-up meeting with Captain Elise Marquez, why not share it across the galaxy? Marquez's eyes lit up at the thought. A comedy tour? She asked, her voice tinged with excitement. You mean, like, traveling from planet to planet, performing for different species? Precisely, Varnock replied, his tone firm but playful. Humor has proven itself as a universal language. Perhaps it can heal divisions elsewhere in the Empire, and beyond. Thus began the planning of what would later be known as the Galactic Comedy Tour. The lineup was diverse, featuring acts from both humanity and the Empire. Human performers included improv troupes, stand-up comedians, and even acrobats who used zero-gravity environments to create jaw-dropping routines. From the Empire came mime artists who manipulated gravity fields to make objects float and dance, holographic illusionists who crafted surreal visual gags, and musicians whose instruments produced sounds no human ear had ever heard. The first stop on the tour was Xyloth Prime, a bustling trade hub populated by dozens of alien species. News of the event spread quickly, drawing crowds from every corner of the station. As the audience filed into the massive amphitheater, skepticism hung thick in the air. Many doubted whether humor could transcend cultural barriers. After all, what was funny to one species might confuse or offend another. But when the show began, doubts melted away. Lieutenant Carter kicked things off with a routine about navigating space toilets, complete with exaggerated sound effects. The multilingual translation system struggled to keep up, but the physical comedy needed no explanation. Roars of laughter echoed through the venue, setting the tone for the rest of the evening. Next came an Imperial mime duo who performed a silent skit about two rivals trying to outdo each other in absurd ways. Their use of gravity manipulation added an extra layer of hilarity. One performer floated upside down while pretending to eat soup, only to have it spill onto his partner below. Humans and aliens alike cheered, their differences momentarily forgotten. Captain Marquez took the stage midway through the show, delivering a mix of observational humor and storytelling. She joked about first contact with the Empire, poking fun at Admiral Varnock's evil villain voice and humanity's own tendency to overreact. When she mimicked Varnock's dramatic warnings, even the Admiral himself chuckled from the sidelines. The highlight of the night, however, was Varnock's closing act. Dressed in a custom-made suit adorned with tiny blinking lights, a nod to Earth's tech aesthetics, he delivered a set filled with self-deprecating jokes. "I once commanded an entire armada," he quipped, "but now I struggle to command my own punchlines." His awkward timing and earnest delivery won over the audience, earning him a standing ovation, or its alien equivalent. As the tour continued, its impact grew exponentially. On planets where tensions simmered between factions, shared laughter became a catalyst for dialogue. Species that had never interacted before found common ground in moments of absurdity. Even hardened diplomats admitted the humor made negotiations less tense and more productive. Back on Earth, the tour became a global sensation. Clips of performances went viral, sparking debates about which alien joke translated best into human languages. Late-night talk shows featured impersonations of Varnock's stand-up routines, while schools incorporated lessons on interstellar humor into their curricula. For the Galactic Empire, the tour marked a turning point. Laughter infiltrated corners of society long dominated by rigidity and fear. Imperial officers started incorporating light-hearted banter into their daily routines, while citizens embraced creativity as a form of expression. Slowly but surely, the galaxy began to change, not through force or treaties, but through joy. By the time the tour concluded months later, its legacy was undeniable. It wasn't just entertainment, it was proof that connection, however fleeting, could reshape worlds. And as ships departed for their respective homes, the message was clear. Sometimes, all it takes to bring people together is a good laugh. The Galactic Comedy Tour had been more than just a series of performances. It was a revolution disguised as entertainment. As the tour wrapped up, its effects rippled across the galaxy, sparking changes no one could have predicted. Admiral Varnock, once a symbol of imperial authority, now stood at the forefront of a movement to redefine what it meant to lead. Inspired by humanity's irreverence and creativity, he announced sweeping reforms within the empire. "The time has come," Varnock declared in a historic address broadcast to every corner of the empire, "to embrace new ways of thinking. For too long, we have valued only power and order, dismissing anything that did not fit our rigid ideals. But laughter has taught us that strength lies not in domination, but in connection. Today, we begin anew." His words sent shockwaves through the empire. Some hailed him as a visionary, while others accused him of undermining centuries of tradition. Yet even his critics couldn't deny the palpable shift in tone. Gone were the days of cold, unyielding decrees. Instead, official communications began incorporating humor and empathy. Imperial propaganda posters, once filled with stern-faced warriors, now featured smiling diplomats alongside slogans like "Unity through laughter." One of Varnock's first acts was dismantling the oppressive hierarchies that had long governed the empire. He replaced them with councils composed of representatives from various species, ensuring diverse voices were heard in decision-making processes. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive, earned a seat at the table thanks to their unique perspective. Captain Elise Marquez became Earth's ambassador, working closely with Varnock to foster cooperation between civilizations. But perhaps the most significant change came in how conflicts were resolved. Instead of resorting to warfare or threats, disputes were addressed through open dialogue, and sometimes comedy. When tensions flared between two neighboring planets over resource allocation, Varnock personally intervened, hosting a diplomatic roast, where leaders exchanged light-hearted jabs under strict rules of civility. By the end of the event, they had not only reached an agreement, but also formed a budding friendship. Back on Earth, humanity marveled at the transformation. What had started as a tense standoff had evolved into an unprecedented era of collaboration. Scientists from both sides shared knowledge, artists collaborated on interstellar projects, and engineers worked together to develop technologies that benefited everyone. Even children grew up learning about the importance of laughter and understanding, with school curriculums including lessons on intercultural humor. Still, challenges remained. Not everyone welcomed these changes. Hardline factions within the empire continued to resist, plotting quietly in the shadows. General Krithos, though stripped of his command, lingered as a figurehead for those who believed the old ways were superior. His followers whispered of rebellion, warning that the empire's newfound softness would leave it vulnerable. Despite these threats, hope prevailed. Varnock remained steadfast, knowing that progress often faced resistance. "Change is never easy," he told Marquez during one of their frequent strategy sessions. "But if laughter can unite enemies, then surely it can overcome fear." Together, they strengthened alliances, building networks of trust that spanned galaxies. Trade routes flourished, cultural exchanges deepened, and stories of unity spread far and wide. Slowly, the galaxy began to feel lighter, as though centuries of weight had been lifted. By the end of Varnock's term, the Galactic Empire bore little resemblance to its former self. Its name remained unchanged, but its essence had transformed. It was no longer a monolith of control, but a beacon of possibility, a testament to the power of laughter and connection. As ships departed for distant stars, carrying tales of this extraordinary chapter, one truth resonated across the cosmos. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of wonder. But laughter made it feel a little smaller, a little brighter, and infinitely more hopeful. Years passed, and the story of humanity's first encounter with the Galactic Empire became legend, a tale told across planets, species, and generations. Textbooks referred to it as the Great Guffaw, marking the moment when humor saved countless lives and reshaped interstellar politics. What had started as a misunderstanding escalated into chaos, only to culminate in unity, a reminder that sometimes all it takes to change the universe is a good laugh. Captain Elise Marquez retired from active duty, trading her uniform for the quiet life of a writer. Her memoirs, titled Why So Serious, chronicled the events of those fateful days, from the initial contact aboard the Pioneer to the final bow of the Galactic comedy tour. The book became an instant bestseller, not just on Earth, but throughout the galaxy. In its pages, she reflected on how laughter had bridged gaps wider than star systems and forged bonds stronger than steel. Admiral Varnock, too, embarked on a second career, this time as a comedian, with his signature catchphrase, "Why so serious?" Echoing through amphitheaters, he traveled across the empire, performing routines that blended self-deprecating humor with sharp social commentary. His shows weren't just entertainment. They were lessons in empathy, teaching audiences to find common ground even in their differences. Critics hailed him as a pioneer who had turned laughter into diplomacy. Meanwhile, the Galactic Empire continued to evolve under the principles of creativity and collaboration. The councils established by Varnock thrived, fostering partnerships between species that once viewed each other with suspicion or hostility. Trade routes expanded, cultural festivals celebrated diversity, and scientific breakthroughs accelerated thanks to shared knowledge. Humanity played a pivotal role in this new order, contributing ideas and innovations that complemented the Empire's advanced technology. The ripple effects reached even the most remote corners of the galaxy. On Xyloth Prime, where the comedy tour began, statues were erected in honor of both Varnock and Marquez, symbols of unity standing side by side. Schools incorporated humor studies into their curricula, teaching students that laughter was more than mere amusement. It was a tool for connection and healing. Of course, challenges persisted. General Krythos and his followers remained a lurking threat, occasionally staging minor uprisings in forgotten sectors. But these incidents were isolated, their impact dulled by the overwhelming tide of progress. Each rebellion served as proof that fear could never compete with hope, and that laughter would always prevail over intimidation. Back on Earth, humanity looked to the stars with pride and wonder. Once confined to a single planet, they now stood shoulder to shoulder with beings from countless worlds, united by a shared vision of peace. Late-night talk shows still joked about the Empire's early attempts at comedy, while memes immortalized Admiral Varnock's awkward punchlines. Yet beneath the humor lay a deeper truth. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through force, but through character. As decades turned into centuries, the legacy of the Great Guffaw endured. Historians noted that the era marked a turning point in galactic history, proving that power didn't always come from strength, but from connection. Empires rose and fell, but the lessons of laughter remained timeless. In the end, what started as a clash of cultures blossomed into a beacon of hope, a reminder that joy could conquer fear, understanding could dissolve prejudice, and laughter could light the darkest corners of the cosmos. And whenever tensions arose, someone would inevitably say, "Remember the Great Guffaw." Because in a universe full of uncertainty, one thing was certain: laughter would always bring them together.